Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thanks for rejoining me with my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons solo campaign. I think we are now up to episode 6 in the Ruined Temple of Darkwater Lake. As a bit of a recap, I'm going to just go through some of the stages we have gone through. This is our map to date. It doesn't really look too much, however there's a lot of action being packed in. We had recently been in this room here, which was the indoctrination and meditation room. It contained 10 goblins. We managed to put them to sleep. We've actually, the party, when you think about it, has been quite lucky so far. We managed to dispatch 10 goblins here without letting any of them escape and maybe raising alarm. However, we did have a bit of a grievous wound with Tristan, but we won't go into all the details of that again. We managed to resolve it quite adequately. I might have some further potential penalties for Tristan further down the line that I think might be fair to maybe apply, but I will discuss that anon. We had, as I said, we managed to put the goblins to sleep. The room was searched. I do have a larger schematic of what the room looks like. So let's just move this out of view just now. So in fact, we came in from this angle. This angle here. Got too many sheets of paper lying around. We came in from this angle here, the characters. The goblins were in this location. They all fell asleep. We managed to dispatch them. We did do a search for treasure, and what we found was one ancient coin which was nestled in the bottom of a large barrel. So we're assuming that maybe, a bit similar to this barrel of oil, there is probably a large barrel here too, which probably the goblins were sitting on or doing something around, and we didn't really come into eyesight when we came in. So this is, we can put a large barrel, and that contained the ancient coin, which is worth 50 gold pieces. And we also found in a stone container, now that could really be anywhere in this room, but let's just say for sake of argument it was over here, because this is what the goblins were potentially fighting about. A little stone container, that's the, okay, and that had that had 100 platinum pieces in it, which converts in real money to 500 gold pieces. So a little haul for our characters. We've made a note of it. It adds to our experience total. And we're 20 other goblins under our belt. We've gained a bit of experience so far in this adventure, but nothing really much to shout about. On the considerations about the goblins, we did establish that, and this is not known to the characters, but we know as solo gamers that we established that this was a goblin hideout, and with a leader in situ. As I said, the party are unaware of this, but we will know at the back of our minds that whenever we come to any more goblins, we can maybe couch that, and they're either going to be part of the dominant faction, or maybe they're going to be some form of splinter group, or offshoot, or potentially even intruders that are trying to interlope on the goblin space. We'd have to really determine that on the spot. So also the character, you could have said, well, why didn't the characters interrogate one of the goblins and kept one of them alive and then hold it back? Now I had to think about that, and I was thinking it maybe from the character's perspective, and their view of goblins are that they are fickle, they're unreliable, and I think they would have felt that it was a bit of a waste of time You know, maybe under, if we had no kind of time pressure, which I'm kind of almost like putting on these characters. You know, the fact that this room is really quite horrible for them, is quite oppressive. It's the atmosphere is very heavy. It's, you know, for Dagobert, he's finding it's almost like it's an assault on his senses, and I think the other characters feel in much the same boat. You know, the less time we spend in this place, the better. So maybe an interrogation with potential screamings and all that kind of wailing stuff that goblins tend to go into. A bit like, you know, when Gollum was being interrogated, you know, it's all that kind of, whoa, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, who wants, you know, them to shout the place down? So that was, you know, kicked into touch, I think, that option. They also, characters need to, you know, let's just place them in here, get them visualized for us in the room, under the leadership of Dagobert. And they think, well, what are we going to do with these bodies? We've got 10. And I suppose when you think about it, a rather grim business of actually dispatching the goblins. So they're probably a bit kind of spattered in you know, this horrible goblin blood all over the place. And they're having to spend a bit of time. So I'll do a bit of timer reckoning later on, just to kind of balance up my books on time. But, you know, they're rather kind of grimy affair that they've just been involved in. You know, maybe a bit of psychological damage as well to them. It's really not very nice. Even, you know, against quite be classified as a kind of monster race, but it's still not nice to do. They have a bit of a dilemma. You know, what are they going to do with these 10 bodies? You know, maybe let's maybe take some of them in turn. And Tristan says, well, why don't we use this barrel of oil and we'll just burn the bodies? And they say, don't be silly, Tristan. You know, it's going to make all this smoke. It's potentially going to set us, set the rest of the place on fire. There's all these rushes on the floor. They might be a bit damp and whatever, but who knows? And, you know, it's bound to alert everything. So, you know, Tristan maybe sheepishly says, okay, well, I probably agree with that. And Lindris says, well, why don't we approach this from the angle of, you know, potentially we could play the goblins game. And why don't we disguise them, or disguise the bodies and flail them around as if they had a bit of an internecine struggle. They had a bit of a fracas between themselves. And they decided to just do the dirt. You know, maybe, you know, they were squabbling when we came in. You know, why don't we disguise them? And Dagobert and Adeline say, well, that is a very sound idea, Lindris. However, you do see the penalty that it could take us quite a while to stage all these bodies, plus the fact that, you know, who you know, potentially they might see through it. Yeah. And Lindris says, well, okay, you know, it's just a suggestion. They say, well, we do really appreciate that, Lindris. We'll keep it in mind when we come to our final decision. And I think between Adelind and Dagobert, who seem to have the, you know, quite sensible shoulders in this case, they come to the view that, well, we've got all this, you know, look at our environment. The floor in this room is covered in rushes. Why don't we temporarily, you know, just as an expedient thing, and this can be done quite quickly, why don't we try to hide the goblin bodies discreetly across this room under the rushes? And I think as unanimously, they all kind of, you know, Adelind kind of pipes in and says, yes, I was thinking along that lines too, Dagobert. And as a unanimous group, they say, yes, that sounds like a very sound plan. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to hide all the bodies. And also what we can think about is any further investigation of the room. Now, you know, are we going to do any further searching? You know, what are our options there? Remember, we were talking about, you know, what else is in this room. There were things like tapestries and wall hangings, and some sort of symbols on the wall. And, you know, I suppose from a cursory glance, the characters have thought, well, these make no sense. They're really quite horrific. But are they worthwhile further study? You know, there might be some sort of hidden messages in them. But again, we feel that maybe there's just too much of a time constraint. and we really need to get on. So that is discounted as well. So we can get on with the task of actually disposing the bodies, and that's what we're doing. So we're moving into little subgroups and take maybe Adelind. Adelind says, well, I'll tell you what, Dagobert, I will hold on to the lantern and give you light while you chaps, you the ones that did all the dispatching, will go and hide all the individual bodies. So they're obliging and whatever. And we'll say that maybe Tristan is coming over to the center. And they're still got that, what is that? That rustling noise is still making an appearance, and they can really quite notice it now, because the fact that there's no other noise in the room, it's just themselves, their own breathing, just maybe the drip 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 of maybe some moisture accumulating in some, maybe the corridor outside, or that type of thing. But they do still hear a rustling noise. And they're wondering, can we find out where this is originating from? And Tristan says, look, I think I can discern it's louder in the center of this room over here. So they start to congregate round once they've disposed of all the bodies. And they say, okay, so what is the story here? And what Tristan does is he manages to sweep away some of the rushes in the center. And under the rushes, to his surprise, he discovers a small grate, an iron grate, a rusty iron grate. So we can draw that onto the thing, and I'll just put as if little bars across. So there's this rusty iron grate in the floor. And we do feel a steady air current moving up what looks like, when we peer down into the gloom, it's a 20-foot shaft. It does appear to be a ventilation shaft, and that might have been causing the rustling in the rushes. It's 2 foot square. It's too tight for a human or an elf or even a dwarf, and potentially even a hobbit to get down. But something smaller, something maybe goblin size or whatever, could potentially get down it. But if we are examining it, and maybe Adelind says, well, let's have a look at this and just give it a bit more of an eyeball, and let's see what her intelligence is. And I'll just do an intelligence test as a bit of kind of like intuition. So let's find out what Adelind's intelligence is. I think it's quite high, because she is our magic user. So we'd expect Adelind to be up there with the rest of them, any respectable magic user. And Adelind has got an intelligence of 14. Okay, so it's not amazing, but remember with her general tendencies, she's perceptive with a secondary of aloof. So let's give her a good chance of being at least noticing something. So I'll get my D20 and I'll say, if it's a fail, maybe she doesn't notice as much, but she's still going to have a good chance. So a 7, she does notice. And what I'm saying is, for that particular grate, she says, "Oh, look, I can see it's almost like this has been used recently. There does seem to be some greasy smears. I can even discern some scratches. And look at the corner there. There's a scrap of cloth there too. And then what they hear is, to amplify the actual rustling, they can hear some little scratchings and whatever, and scuttlings. And when they look down, peer down into the tunnel, which descends 20 feet, they can see a little pair of yellow glinting eyes staring back at them, and a voice, what sounds like a little goblin voice, says, 'I'm watching you,' and it scuttles off. And they see a little yellow emaciated goblin, with a small loincloth on. You know, very big wide eyes. It's very kind of golemly looking. Scuttle off, probably a side passage in the ventilation shaft and disappear. And they go, oh my goodness, what was that? It was a goblin. We're going to have to be on goblin alert. So, yeah, this is potentially an issue for us. So, and also what I want to do is actually cycle back to the overall goblin situation, because we did say that this was a goblin hideout, and it had a structured leadership. There are more goblins in this complex. So what are the implications now that we have hidden our remember the other room that we had, which was the other temple room, which was the sacrificial chamber. And what we've done with the 10 bodies in that case, we'd dumped them all in this cage. So we've got 10 bodies in here. We've got 10 bodies distributed around in this room. There is probably a good chance that they are going to be discovered. And they're not in positions where the goblins would go, you know, oh dear, they've been fighting amongst themselves. But there's always the possibility that the goblins can either walk past. So what I thought I would do is, now that we've activated our goblin faction, I'm saying there's a chance every wandering monster turn. So every time we roll for a wandering monster, we'll also roll a dice, a 10-sided dice. And a 1 in 10, there'll be a goblin patrol or a scout who will enter one of these rooms, either this room or this room. And now that there's 2 rooms on the go, I'm going to say it's a 2 in 10 chance. And what we can do is we can roll on a body concealment table for the outcome. And what I'm saying is, if we roll a d6 on a 1 or a 2, they discover the corpses and raise the alarm, which is the worst case scenario. So we'll have potentially goblins alerted. You know, maybe there'll be horns sounding, all kind of stuff, and it'll just go into bedlam mode, and the characters will suddenly realize that they are in the middle of an organized goblin complex. A 3 to 4, saying that the goblins are actually confused. And they think, well, you know, there's an awful lot of infighting and paranoia in goblin ranks. Maybe they think, you know, they just don't quite understand exactly what's happened. Maybe there's been a bit of a fratricide going on. There's been or potentially there's been some shenanigans that they just can't quite understand. So there might be some form of delay to their response. A 5, I'm assuming that a renegade or an enemy is at work, so they think there's been interlopers, or there's maybe been a renegade in the group that's maybe slaughtered them. And a 6, which is the best option for the characters, is that they miss it entirely, which is kind of what we want as the result. So I think we've probably discovered enough in this room now. It really has absorbed our attention. Dagobah's saying, for goodness sake, I need to get out of here. There is a door at the bottom. We're going to go through that. I just want to do another quick check on time, and just to make sure that we are fair on that. So this is now 11:40 plus these turns. So we're saying that we spent all that time searching for treasure and mapping the room. I would say to move the bodies and whatever, it's probably going to take us maybe about at least another 10 minutes to do that, plus all the debate, maybe even about 15 minutes in total. So let's say that that disappears and we add 2 on turns. So we're almost at wandering monster stage, and also we are almost at having to take a rest period. So you know, we might be able to just get the door open in time. Let's say we've got a few rounds, or are we just going to wait it out in this room? Yeah, that is the case. We're almost like feeling that we need to take a bit of a rest. Also, I'm going to inject the Tristan factor. I'm going to say there's a chance that after any strenuous activity, there's quite a good chance that he will feel a bit under the weather, and he might have to take another turn out. And I think that's only fair to say, well, he's had this grievous wound. And apart from the fact that his strength has been reduced to 16, there might be some lasting consequences on that. So if he rolls his, the fact that he's been hauling these goblin bodies around, let us find out what his constitution is, and we'll roll equal to or under that to get it. So let's find out what Tristan's constitution is. Tristan has a constitution of, well, he's lucky he's 15, so he should be able to make this. So let's get our 20-sided dice, which I have now. Oh yes, in my dice shaker. 15 or less. Oh no, he hasn't. So what that means is he says, oh, I'm not really feeling too good. I think I just overdid it a bit. I'm going to have to take a rest for a turn. And we go, oh, well, I suppose that will coincide with our rest period anyhow. So let's just do it. So basically, they've spent an awful lot of time in this room. The reason that this is important is because we are going to have to do 2 checks. We're going to have to do a check for wandering monsters, and that's a 1 in 10. And also, we're going to have to do a check for goblin patrols. So it's getting all a wee bit tense. Let us select the 10-sided dice of Darkwater Lake. So I think we should do goblin patrols first, and that is going to be a 1 or a 2. And well, maybe we haven't had anybody. This is not active. Now that I'm thinking about it, this room that we're in is not active. It is not in play. So what I think I will do is I will invoke this goblin search process from the next wandering monster turn. I think that's probably fair. You would say, well, maybe there's a chance that the goblins have discovered this other one, Brian. But now that basically I've just intervened this rule now, I'm not going to do it retrospectively backwards. I think I will just invoke it from moving on from this room and say there is a potential chance. I think there's going to be too much kind of overlap of patrols and our characters. So let's just forget I ever said that we were going to do a goblin patrol check. We're just going to do we're just going to do a wandering monster check, and that's a 1 in 10. So we do not get a wandering monster. So phew. Right, I think we are actually, we can dispense with all this chit chat and whatever, and we can actually resume the adventure. So let's get our master map out, and we realize that there is a door to be opened here. So on our little map, this door would be down here, closed door. Okay, so we're back to the situation where we are opening doors. What are we going to do? Are we going to do the old heave-ho? Heave-ho, here we go. We've got Anarian. Anarian we want as our bowman. Adelind has dispensed of her spell. She could help out with the push. Tristan is down to a 1 to 3. So let's do that. Let's have Adelind, Lindris and Tristan do the lifting, do the stuff, and we'll have Adelind as black, Lindris as red, and Tristan as white. So let's find out what the story is on that and see whether they can quietly inverted commas, air quotes, open this door. So to a man and a woman, they fail. So they go bash, and they go, oh, this one's stiff. It must be all this, I suppose they're getting all these rushes, and they're all kind of damp. And the fact that we've got this air current in, it's probably making things rust a bit. Let's give it another bash. We get, that's Tristan, gets it. Lindris gets it, Adalind, it doesn't really matter. We managed to open the door. So let us get our sheet back. I will get my, I don't have my other undersheet, but here we go, put it here. I like to have my undersheet just to protect my grey surface. I've already got pencil marks on it already, so I don't want any more. We will consult the Dungeon Master's Guide. We can get this into play, and we can do beyond the door check and find out what is the story beyond the door. So, and also we will get, remember we get our temple dice, our thematic dice, and our atmosphere dice. So we'll have this as atmosphere and this as the thematic. We'll roll them at the same time. So I've got my D20. So let's find out what is the space beyond the door. And we said red was atmosphere and white is theme. So we're going to have an override again. We're going to have, so instead of being a 20, which was a chamber, so it is a chamber anyhow, so that's what is going to be probably be determined. We're going to say we've actually activated a theme, and we've activated atmosphere. Now, when you have a theme activated with atmosphere, this sometimes becomes redundant because the fact that the theme usually has an atmosphere with it, but there's always the chance that one of our theme items does not carry an atmosphere requirement too. So I would say that the atmosphere comes back into play. But let's find out exactly what we are talking about. We are going to create a room. That is the possibility, but what I need to do is just check my table first and find out what is the theme that we are going to apply. So I will get to my sheets. The murky depths. So where is my little sheets that show me? Just bear with me a second. Yes, I've got my sheet now. So thematic dice showed a 5 or 6. We consult the theme table. So let's have a look at what this theme table is. We're going to roll a d6 for the theme table. So let's get our d6 and find out what is beyond this door. So we have a 4, and again it's a temple room. So we are now with. I think just one of the things I was going to talk about just before we go into the detail of what the temple room is, I can adjust this mechanic and I can turn it on and off and recalibrate it at any time as I see fit. And if I feel that maybe the incidence of these temple rooms and this maybe less the atmosphere, because I quite like the atmosphere coming in no matter what. But say we do get the feeling that it's just, you know, you're having temple room after temple room or whatever, just the die rolls have been coming up. You know, it's a 1/3 chance every time we do it. I could reduce that and say I roll a d10 and say, well, actually on a 9 or a 10, it's a temple room, or we have to roll on my theme table. That might be a way to get to maybe lower the incidence, but I'm quite liking having these things coming up just now, because to me this is producing quite a lot of interest in exactly how we are exploring this ruin. You know, we had I remember with Dunmorna there was quite a succession of rooms and passages and whatever that didn't really have anything in them. They were always empty, and we just had to go through a kind of process of mapping them out. This maybe is a bit on the extreme. However, I think it's a difficult one to call, and I think I wanted to use this expedition as a bit of an experiment and just get almost like fine tune it. So maybe for the next adventure I'll have 9 or a 10 as being the maybe keep the atmosphere as being quite a high. chance, but you know, 9 or a 10. So, you know, that being said, let us find out what type of room, what type of temple room. And the base description will provide items ideas, but also roll additional dressing items on tables appropriate to the room. There will be a minimum of 20 by 20 feet. And we roll on the atmosphere table 5 to 6. So let us find out what the story is with our temple room. We'll get a d6. We've already had sacrificial and ritualistic. We've had indoctrination and meditation. What else are we going to get? We get storage and supplies. Okay, interesting. And what storage and supplies says is it's a functional areas for keeping the cult running. This includes provisions, ceremonial regalia, tools, prisoner holding cell, or crypts for cult members. So this might be quite interesting. It might have some little cells. It's a different type of room. You know, I can maybe work quite a lot into that. You know, I've got a room table 1d4 for items and religious 1d3. So we might have quite a lot of stuff in it. So let's just go through some of the basics of generating the actual room itself. And I will get my little post-it note. So we've got, it's called storage and supplies. Storage and supplies. And I do 1d4 on the room table, room, and 1d3 on religious. 1d3 religious. And we're going to have an automatic atmosphere because we got that on our atmosphere dice. We don't have to roll separately for atmosphere. Let's find out what our room is, and we do chamber and room size, shape and size. Yeah, let's do it. And also, I suppose, you know, always the key thing, just is there anything in here to bother us? Which is always, I always seem to just nonchalantly just go through all these things and go, oh yeah, and we've got to actually check that. So that would be good to know. Let us roll, get our d20 out and find out what size of room we're talking about. We've got a 13, and a 13 for a room is rectangular, 20 by 30. Right, so is it 20, we'll say 20 by 30 that we come into it, or 30 by 20. So 1 to 3 is 20 by 30, and 4 to 6 is, yes. So we are coming into it. Are we going to come into it with it? You know, it could potentially come across here. So where is the starting? Let's say that the top left corner, where does it start? Is it going to start there, there, there? Yeah, either there, or there. So let's find out. So it's going to start here. So we do have an interesting, it moves back along here a bit. So I'll just get my little ruler for this. So it almost comes back towards the corridor, but doesn't touch. And it is here. So potentially you could see maybe some of the logic of the builders of this and having rooms next together. You know, the fact that they've got the indoctrination, maybe they need some like holding cells and whatever just next to it. You know, that kind of, or maybe they need regalia or something, you know, that's held in these things. You know, what else were we talking about? Any supplies? You know, that's, yeah, we're already maybe trying to build up a bit of a rationale why we've got those rooms nestled together. And they don't always have to be kind of corridors. The fact that it does this, I suppose this is maybe part of maybe the warped thinking in the people that built this place. You know, to give the architecture is sometimes stamps a kind of way of thinking upon the people in here. And maybe this is felt as being a bit disorientating, that you kind of slide. You think, how did I get from here to here? And the sacrificial chamber to indoctrination. You know, You know, it's almost like departments in a department store. You know, indoctrination, you know, sacrificial indoctrination and storage. You know, next floor. Let's find out what the number of exits are. So we will get our D20 for that. We get a 6, and on the number of exits, a 6 means, what is that? That's up to 600, you know, 20 by 30. It's 2 exits. Okay, so where are the exits on our little thing? So we've got 2 doors. We've got a 10, which is left wall. So if we're coming into it, the left wall is going to be on our right. So it's going to be 1 to 3. It's going to be here. And we have another one, which is 12. Well, that's left wall again. So the only place that that can be is, yeah, it has to be on our right again. So it has to be here. Okay, we'll do that. 2 exits. Okay, right. Okay, right. Table 5, F. Chamber or room contents, D20. Right. Okay, let us find out who is in, or is there anything in here? Is there anybody out there? Let's find out. 9. Well, 9 means empty. Okay, so all we're going to do in this case is we are going to build up this room. And I think we can just do that, I think, because what I want to do is maybe just set this up and see whether there are anything else that I can maybe, from the thematic side, and see whether we can actually generate anything. So we have blasted through the door after the second attempt. We discover this room 30 by 20, 2 exits. It is, from initial rolling, we work out it is a storage and supplies room. Let us do our stuff on our room and a religious item, dungeon dressing subtables. So room dressing, we're going to roll 1d4 on this. So let's get our d4 out. On the room, we're going to have 2 items on our room. So we've got 2. And on the religious, we're going to roll 1d3 on the actual religious table. Only 1. Okay, and we are going to have an atmosphere. And on the atmosphere table, we're going to roll a 1d6. And that means air current. All right, so maybe we've got another ventilation shaft. Air current. Okay, so let's roll on our room thing first. Get to the Dungeon Master's Guide and go to, and we're going to have 2 rolls on, well actually, that is, I've got a roll on my actual subtable. It's a bit silly, should have got to the subtable. Yes, so the room dressing table, I roll a d6 for each. So let's do the first one, a d6. 4 is general, so we're going to do 1 is general. And the second one is 4. It's general again. General. This could be the broken arrow. And then we're going to have religious. Let's find out. Let's find out from the Dungeon Master's Guide, what's this all about? What is in this room? What is it going to make it atmospheric for us? General, we get our percentage dice for this. My D10, which is here. So the first one, we're going to have 52. And the second one, in fact, I'll just roll all my percentages just now so I can go straight to the table. 22, and also religious, 47. Okay, so this means I don't have to keep on jumping backwards and forwards. So general 52 on our table is fungi common. Right. Now we are, yes, right. The mind boggles. Now, we are coming to the juncture of, coming towards the end of this episode. I think that's a nice little thing for me to take away and maybe come up with a rationale. You know, maybe a rule of 4 on why we've got this fungi in. Maybe it is a sinister thing. Maybe it leads to other adventures. You know, we had, you know, I've you know, probably one of the things I need to discuss at the end of this is that maybe that little goblin that popped up. And what are the implications for that? I think that's something that we need to maybe just discuss, you know, as a future thing. And maybe I skirted over that a bit too fast. We will come back to that when I do my little bit of a recap. 22. Oh, right. So we are really going for it on the atmosphere. Cracks in the ceiling. Okay, what does this mean? Definitely sounds like a subtable on cracks in the ceiling. So we've got fungi. We've got cracks in the ceiling. We've got this religious article. What is the religious one? It's 47. And 47 says incense burners. So yes, maybe they've got a whole stock of incense burners. That sounds very temple-ish. Burners. Let's say burners times 1 to 3 of these things. So we've got 2. Okay, and we also had an air current. And air currents, let's roll our D100 for air currents and find out what that is. That's, 99. Oh, you don't often see that. 99 is, that was gorgeous. That would have been a urine smell. Wind, strong, moaning. Oh dear. Oh dear. Right, so wind, strong, ooh, moaning. This room sounds awful. You know, maybe they've come in. There's, you know, let's just get the description, because this storage thing, sound, you know, maybe just innocuous that it's just a storage thing, but my goodness, it's certainly punching above its weight on the atmospherics. You know, functional areas for keeping the cult running. This includes provisions, ceremonial regalia, tools. There are prisoner holding cells or crypts for cult members. So maybe this is what it's all to do with. It's the nefarious side of it, the malevolent side, you know, the prisoner holding cell, the crypts for the cult members. I feel a real story coming on here. I've got fungi on the walls. I've got cracks in the ceiling. I've got maybe these incense burners are still going. They're perpetual incense burners. This really strange smell. And then there's the wind, strong, and the moaning. The moaning is going on. Yes. I think I have enough to maybe generate a little thing there. I think I maybe have done enough adventuring for today. You know, that this room here. The major takeaway from this is the fact that we've got a few potential problems. One is we've got this potential chance of goblin patrols. Now that we know we have an organized enemy, this is the lair, stronghold of some form of goblin, stronger goblin, a chieftain of some sort. It is his complex, so he might have some more patrols scouting out, and they have a chance of coming across the bodies in this room, and also the bodies in the sacrificial chamber that have just been rather unceremoniously lobbed into that cage. They've got a few blankets over them, but my goodness, it doesn't really take Einstein or a rocket scientist to maybe notice the fact that there was something untoward in there. Plus the fact that there's probably quite a number of blood stains or whatever on the floor, because it was quite an extensive combat. And some of it Tristan's blood. We've also found this hatch, this grate, which we can't get down. However, it led to what we ascertained was a ventilation shaft. And more interestingly, there was a little goblin. It seemed to be quite malevolent. It doesn't look as though it is part of the main group. Is this some form of renegade? Is this some form of maybe he has escaped the goblin chief? Maybe he has disappointed and has been punished and has been exiled. Who knows? Is he a bit like a kind of Newt character in Aliens? He uses these ventilation shafts to get around. Is he potentially going to be an ally or an enemy or something in between? Treacherous. He could be quite amusing. Maybe this is something just to bring into the game. And this is what I was talking about possibly in my channel update, where I was alluding to the fact that in my AD&D campaign, I wanted to maybe just experiment with things that weren't quite on, randomized, and they were almost like brought in as a kind of enablers and helpers in developing the story. So I think we've got maybe two overarching things going on in this dungeon now. We've got the goblin presence at a macro level, and at a micro level, we've got this little goblin renegade, or he's emaciated. Maybe we could just give him food. Maybe he just wants some treasure. Maybe he's after that ancient coin. Maybe that was his and it was stolen from him. Who knows? It's precious. My mind is racing. What I think I can do is, for the next episode, is I can basically sketch this room out and see whether anything really comes to mind that I can maybe generate any the fact that it's quite tantalizing. Cracks in the ceiling, fungi, the moaning, what is causing this? Is it just atmospheric conditions? Is it just normal? Is it natural? Or it's AD&D, it has to have some form of supernatural or strange or mysterious origination. Let us find out exactly what that is going to be. Okay, right. I don't think I have anything else on my list of things to do. Or there might be just one thing, if you just indulge me for a second. I thought one of the things I have in all my other campaigns, and something that I tried to push a lot, is the development of characterization in each of our characters. And the fact that I layer on quite a lot, take my Stormbringer one as my latest example. I really went in quite a bit of detail to layer on lots of narrative ideas, things to do with their archetype and whether they have a scar or something to do with their appearance, or if they got a doom and that type of thing, which is all based around the world. For my AD&D characters, being my first campaign, the only thing I did was basically say that they had a general tendency. And I think for my new characters, I'd also had a general tendency and a personality. And I thought maybe just as a quick reckoner, just have a quick look at what their personality is, and just cast our minds back over all the episodes and see whether I have been true to these individuals and they have acted in a manner that you think is kind of adds up to this type of pet tendency. Let's go with Tristan first. And he had quite an interesting general tendency of servile. And I think Tristan has maybe got a bit of a puppy dog kind of attitude. I think he is a bit entranced by Dagobert, who he views as a bit of a mentor. He's also very, with Jasper, his patron, and he's very much, following in his footsteps as a mentor. And also he's quite in awe of Lindris. So I think he has still got that kind of, he's very loyal. He's not to the point where he is a phoning servant, but as someone who is still independent but likes strong leadership, and this is what Dagobert gives. I think that's a tick in the box. Dagobert the Holy, our leader, the cleric of Bane, the bringer of the light of Bane into many different situations. He is obviously very sober. But he is the voice of sense, Dagobert. Very rarely gets out of character. I think initially in our first adventures, he maybe was a bit of the butt of the joke sometimes because Tristan and Lindris were doing all the heavy lifting. But Dagobert came into his own. He started wielding that mace, and my goodness, you better get out of the way. And I think he's shown quite a bit of sober resolve all the way through. Quite a stoic individual. He's always kept. In Britain, he would say he bats with a straight bat. He's on point, I think. So I think that's okay. I think it takes. Lindris Runeweaver, he's an elf. Again, I think he's quite sober. He does have a few little jaunty quips and whatever. He's quite entertaining at times. You know, he's really quite pedantic about his mapping. He's very, very proud of that. I think he adds quite a bit of otherworldly, kind of almost strange knowledge that comes in from different life experience from a different race. He really, the fact that this is diversity is our strength. I think Lindris Runeweaver really exemplifies that. And he maintains quite, I think, maybe a slightly detached aura, which probably all elves do. So I think maybe we can give ourselves a tick in the box there. So that's good. I think all our original characters were pretty well in line. And then we've got Anarian, good old Anarian Emberheart, our ranger, and he's down as an altruist and rude. Now, he has displayed rudeness in many cases because he's quite abrupt. You know, the saucy knave stuff, and you know, people, you know, maybe him just jumping into things and being held back by Dagobert. But I think maybe he has been curbed, and he's been quite educated by our party. And he does maintain his altruistic nature because that's what rangers are. They don't maintain physical wealth. So he doesn't really bother about that as long as he's got enough 20 arrows in his quiver, and he has his sword. He's quite happy being part of the party. So I think maybe we get another tick for that, and his rudeness can be curbed. And then, of course, we've got Adelind, our favourite. Adelind, Lady Adelind, our magic user from the kingdom, minor nobility. The gardener. She is perceptive, of course she is. She does demonstrate that quite often. She noticed the in the latest instance, those little marks on the grate, the iron grate, and the fact that it had been used, and there was a little bit of cloth, goblin cloth. And she is aloof because she is aristocracy and she is minor nobility. That just comes with the territory with Adelind. So I just wanted to almost like give a bit of a kind of reckoner on their characters and their personalities and see whether I have been playing them to type. And I think I have, so I'm quite happy with that. I think I get a little bit of a tick in the box there, so I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so for next episode, we're going to generate this room, the storage and supply room. Is it got any secrets in it? We do know that it's not occupied. However, that does not mean that there might not be a story to tell. And let us find out. You know, this moaning, is it really just the wind coming through one of these things, or is it potentially more sinister? You know, there are cells in this room. There are crypts. Moaning. It could, 2 + 2 could equal anything you want. It's AD&D. Okay, I am definitely just starting to ramble now. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and I look forward to you joining me next time.